We are here talking about maintenance and construction. And with that being said, let me have our panelists introduce themselves, and let's start with Todd.
How you doing? Todd Vignola from Adventures Construction Services. We're located in New York. And Ray, I messed it up, but we're happy to be here. I'm looking in the
Well,
wrong spot.
I really don't want to edit, so we'll probably just leave
Yeah.
that in. Todd, do you want to explain where you're calling from? Because you're not in the auto business, you're in the construction.
Oh, I would love to. I'm in my garage where this is where all of the happiness happens. So this is this is really my only car, and it's a 1985 Z28 Chevrolet Camaro, and it's got about 7,000 miles on it. It's the one that never gets driven. I thought I would share it with everyone today.
You know, Dave, you and I are in the wrong business because every construction guy I know, like that has a size company, like their building is just full of stuff, full of toys, boats and cars and motorcycles and campers. I meant, you must see that, right, Dave?
I do, yeah, I do, and good for Todd. He's in his happy place, and that's where everybody should be. So,
I mean, look at
Thank
Dave.
you, Dave.
All right, Dave, why don't you introduce yourself?
hi everyone, I'm Dave Chesky with the Falcon Group. We are full service engineering, architecture, reserve study professionals, serving New York, New Jersey, actually national now, and happy to be here to talk about maintenance and construction.
I meant Dave is like chained to his chair. You know, I'm basically squeezed in this little area here. Todd's got like an infinite amount of room and toys to go play with. So, all right. Well, good for Todd. That's for sure. All right. So I have a bunch of questions. I think they're a little bit challenging, and I'm going to go to Todd for each one and then go to Dave for follow-up. So the first one is, what are the critical failure points of a deck that require destructive testing rather than a visual inspection?
Destructive testing, as in invasive, meaning opening things up and taking a look.
Yeah,
I
as far as
would
like,
say yes. So in regards to that, the hidden dangers of the decks are generally located in the ledger boards, whether they are fastened properly to the structure of the home itself. If those are not correct, there is the opportunity for catastrophic failure there. And also you want to be able to inspect your footings and the posts connected to the footings and the framing. Those would be your most challenging places that would cause a problem.
Dave, is my term destructive testing an engineer term you learned to get your license?
We use destructive testing and invasive testing interchangeably.
Oh, it is a real term.
It is.
Any commentary on destructive testing as far as decks go, Dave? Is that common or uncommon? When does that have to happen?
It's common, but just to kind of piggyback on what Todd said regarding the ledger board and that being the most vulnerable spot on a deck, the majority of deck failures, probably 95% of them, occur at the ledger board where the deck is connected to the building, and that's because that ledger board is connected with carriage bolts or lag bolts. Those lag bolts, if they're not properly flashed, or if that ledger is not properly flashed, water gets behind the ledger, corrodes those fasteners, and the corrosion will make those fasteners fail, and the ledger board pulls away from the building and the deck collapses. So removing materials around the ledger above the deck, meaning siding, to check to make sure that the flashing is properly done is definitely critical.
Todd, how often do you make a destructive testing, like looking at a footing, and find that it repeats itself, or you're able to predict it, right? I assume you do spot checks.
We do spot checks. What we do find, again, is exactly what Dave talked about, either the failure and corrosion of the fasteners or the lack of. Many decks are entering, and you see them in 30 to 30 years old or plus, even in the 20-year-old zone, and they just don't have the correct amount, the correct sizes, the correct location and placement of these fasteners, and that's what we always find to be the place that needs to be observed or invaded or destructed, so to speak.
I guess that's because people were lighter back then. I guess they felt they didn't need them and we're so much heavier now. So
I don't know if it's that so much as it is, there's a much better technology as well for fastening the ledger boards now that are actually go through the framing and, you know, into the ceiling space. They're made from, you know, they're just brackets that are a little bit stronger and have better engineering to them. So using those in today's standard, and obviously the upgrade in the inspection needed for a deck, as times progress, so do the rules, so they get upgraded. And we're finding that all the newer decks are being built properly, or the ones that we are redesigning and rebuilding are being built properly.
a townhouse cluster is experiencing chronic interior wall mold, vapor drive, cladding failure, weep systems, or HVAC issues. What is the most common scenario you run into, Todd, out on the road?
So I'm sorry, can you repeat what they found? Say it again.
The choices I had were they're experiencing interior wall mold, a townhouse cluster.
Okay.
And it could be from a vapor drive issue, a cladding failure, a weep system failure, or an HVAC issue. Or what do you find is the most common cause of interior wall mold?
So you hit on all good points there. So one of them has to do with brick, one of them has to do with siding. The reality is, if the base of the project, let's say your framing and then your plywood goes up, if all of those components and the windows and doors are not properly weatherproofed, meaning using products like Tyvek, weather barriers, Vicor flashings around windows, you know, any of that type of stuff not being done properly is going to cause you an issue. Our most found areas where we find leaks are always around windows and doors. Those always seem to be generally the areas where they find their way in. And it's generally from the level above, not necessarily always right where you think it is. It usually comes from a little bit higher up above. As water reaches lower levels, it finds its way out. And so those are what we deal with mostly. And today, with all the snow on the ground, we have a lot of ice damming going on, and that's something that you can never really be prepared for in any circumstance, even on the best roofing projects.
Dave, how common is it that if you find mold in one location of a building, that you'll find it elsewhere? Or is it end up, sometimes it's just limited?
It could be both. You know, it depends on what the cause of the moisture is. Mold needs moisture to grow. It needs ambient temperatures. It needs food, which, you know, sheetrock or gypsum is the food source, and then the moisture is, you know, wetness. So if you track down the wetness, you know, and if it's something like vapor drive, which could be, you know, building wide, then you might have a mold issue building wide. Whereas if you have, you know, persistent leak that's isolated to one area, that mold could be isolated to just that one area. So really the key is to identify the source of moisture infiltration, address that, and then remediate whatever mold that has occurred from that.
All right, Dave. So this is something I'd like to try. I am going to ask you a question about contractors. You're going to tell me whether it's true or false, and Todd is going to let us know if you're correct. Are you ready?
Sure.
Contractors, I did research. They own 75 shirts and all of them have paint on them. Is it true or false? What will Todd answer?
False, because Todd doesn't
Really?
have that.
Well, I bet Todd.
I agree with Dave. He's correct. It's false. A good contractor shouldn't be dirty at all.
Interesting. A good contractor should not be dirty at all. Okay, I like it. All right. There is a valley intersection roof leak. I don't know what that means. You'll tell me. How to determine, is it an underlayment issue, a shingle uplift, or a flashing geometry?
This for Todd?
Yeah, I meant Todd. I meant ChatGPT helping with the questions, and they don't make any. They don't make any sense to me.
Good question.
Go ahead.
So you said there's a leak in a valley and we have to determine whether it's flashing, an overlapping issue, or what was the third choice?
Underlayment or shingle uplift.
But let me do this first. A valley intersection, is it just what it looks like where the roof meets?
Yeah.
It
Okay.
creates a valley, correct.
So where do you find that? What generally is the most common issue?
So a lot of times you can use flashing in the valleys, but in more modern applications like we're using in the community style condo living stuff, we are using a double layer of ice and water shield. So you have 6 feet of ice and water shield across that entire span. So it protects the entire valley itself. That's the new way of doing it. Most common leaks are found there where it's not, doesn't have that proper sealant. And as well as Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of times people join the shingles at that corner and they don't join them properly, and it allows for water to get right in and under.
Yeah.
You know, Dave, also, why do engineers like yourself design these complex roofs? It seems like eventually they're going to leak, but go ahead.
Well, so let me correct you there. It's not engineers that design the roofs, it's architects.
That's
Oh,
right.
The architects will design and make it look pretty, and engineers make sure that it works. So that's why here we have both architects and engineers, and they make it look pretty. We make sure it works, right? So, but like Todd was saying, valleys could be either closed cut valleys or open cut valleys, and each manufacturer will have a recommendation of how they prefer their shingles to be installed in valleys. First step to determining where the leak is coming from is to get into the attic, see if you can identify where the leak is coming in, and then also do a roof level inspection, get on the roof and see what exactly is causing the leak, where it's coming in. We've come across situations where penetrations in a roof, like a plumbing vent or an attic ventilation vent, like a J box or a dryer vent, was installed just because it's convenient, was installed too close to a valley. Code requires a certain distance from a valley that those penetrations are required to be installed. But sometimes that's not followed because it just, that the vent comes up in a certain spot in the attic, and that's where you got to put it through the roof. But if it's really close to a valley is a very it's an area where it's always inundated with flow of water, because water is directed to that valley, or there's going to be snow in that valley left probably the longest period of time while snow melts, right? So if there's a penetration there that causes a weak point, and whatever snow and water is in that location is going to be able to potentially get into that spot just because it's a weak point.
why would there be a vent that would be too close to the valley? Doesn't the architect provide drawings? And I assume they're aware of how far it should be. Are you telling me that the drawings aren't followed, or do the architects make mistakes?
It's not really the architect that lays that out. They'll put in generally where plumbing, bath vents should be located, or maybe where fixtures are located, but how it's actually routed is really done in the field by the contractor and coordinating of the trades. So like, for example, if they're framing the building and the plumber comes in after the framing is up, and the plumber was originally thinking that the vent for the fixture was going to go up in one location, but now there's framing in the way, so they've got to reroute it. No matter what the plan says, they've got to get it up through the roof somehow, right? So they might put it through the roof in a different location that they originally had anticipated, and the plans aren't going to specifically show where the vents are going to come through the roof. They're just going to indicate that the vent needs to go through the roof, right? So it's really a responsible plumber that needs to know to route the pipe so that it's away from any issues like a valley.
I don't like it. I don't like the way that works. I think the architect should make the drawings perfectly. They have the technology to exactly where things should go. And then I think everyone should follow exactly what the architect has laid out.
I don't disagree with you, but in reality and practicality, that doesn't always happen just because of coordination of trades in
Okay.
most cases.
Now, Ray, if I may add something here. Now, remember that you're talking to Todd and Dave, and we are not the original builders or designers of these projects, okay? Now, what the advantage of what me and Dave are doing now is when we team up on a roof, let's say, and we're getting ready to re-roof it, it's 30 years old. As the project starts, the first thing we do is we assess all of those vents and we relocate them while the project is taking place. So the vent that is in the wrong area, which is too close to the valley, as Dave was describing, we know that as we're doing the new roof, we're going to remove that vent and we're going to relocate it, let's say 3 or 4 feet away or up. And that's what's great about a community that has been built already improperly, not by fault, but maybe by change of codes, et cetera. But now you have a much more of a microscope on top of it when you go to rebuild it, and all of the little things that weren't working then are now going to be fixed and will be working properly with your new roof. That's the advantage of having the engineer and the contractor all as one when you're doing a project like this.
And in an original build, like from new construction, the architect's going to have notes and requirements on their drawings, and those notes and requirements are going to direct the plumber to install the vents, where they're supposed to be installed, like stay away from valleys and whatever, things like that. So again, plumber's responsibility to follow the drawings, but it's not going to be specific to where that is going to come through the roof. And Todd is right on with the fact that we're dealing with fixing all those original issues that weren't caught because it was the easy way to do it, or what have you.
Determine if a system meets minimum net free ventilation requirements. Does it involve having the correct soffits and ridge vent ratios? Can you explain what that question means?
Wow, you're really chatting it up with GPT. This is great. You know what? It's great that you're doing this, Ray, because it's going to bring some awareness to the situation. So I'll start, and I'm going to let Dave finish because he's going to give you more of the calculation
Can
method
you
of it.
re-explain the question or rephrase the question? So,
Okay. So the question that ChatGPT and Ray Dickey are asking is, what's the situation with ventilation? You have soffits, you have gable vents, you have electronic vents, you have power vents, you have solar vents, you have box vents, and how do they hurt or help the roofing itself, the longevity of the roof? So there are many ways to ventilate a roof. What we're doing now is what we're trying to do in the industry when we approach the proper setting, meaning when a building has a soffit, the soffit is the overhang. We generally like to draw all the air into the soffit, and that air directs through the roof all the way up to the peak. And then on the peak, we put another vent called a ridge vent. So you have your soffit ventilation, vented soffits, and you have your ridge vent. And the idea is for the natural air and the natural temperature to force its way through the attic and make its way out on the top. You don't want the temperature in the attic to be the same as what's inside the house during winter or cold months. Dave could get into the insulation values for you. But the purpose of what we're doing in there is we're making sure that you're not over-ventilated or under-ventilated. So we will, in the field, as we open up the roofs, we figure out what's going on. Do you have too much ventilation or not enough? The engineer, Dave's firm, when we're working with them, they will say to us, Todd, we want this amount of venting. We want all soffit, all ridge vent, close all gables, get rid of all electronics. Electronics meaning, auto fans. And get rid of the passive vent fans, which are just boxes on the roof that help ventilate out heat, generally causing one source of flow through the roof. If you leave all of those other components in place, meaning you have a soffit plus the ridge vent, plus the gable vents, plus the power vents, plus the passive vents. Yes, everyone, some people have all of this on their roofs. If you leave all of that in play, it can work against each other and improperly ventilate the roof, causing further damage than you thought. Dave, you can take it from there. I hope I gave you a good lead in on that one.
Sure. Yeah, so attic ventilation is a fairly complex, can be complicated topic. The building code requires a balanced ventilation system in an attic space. And the main causes of an improper ventilation system in the attic is it can contribute to ice damming in the winter, which we're seeing now. Or in the summer, it could cause overheating of the roofs and degradation of the shingles or decreased life cycle of the shingles. Not only is it a code requirement to have a balanced ventilation system, and when I say balanced, meaning the ventilation system has to be balanced between lower ventilation, which Todd was talking about, the soffit vents, and upper ventilation, which is the ridge vents, has to be balanced between the two. So if not only are there code requirements, there's also all the manufacturers of roof shingles require the ventilation of an attic space to be code compliant, to meet their requirements in order to uphold their warranties for their shingles. And when we say balance system, again, it has to be a code compliant balance system between lower ventilation and upper ventilation. In the wintertime, your goal is to keep the attic space as close in temperature to the outside as possible. The reason being is that if any heat gets into the attic space and warms the roof deck, that if there's snowpack on that roof deck, that snowpack then warms and melts. As that melted snow drains down the roof, it refreezes at the gutter line or the eave because that's unconditioned space. And that's when you start building up that ice we call ice damming. And as that water backs up, that water then gets into and under the shingles where you don't have protection, and that's when you could cause leaks. In the summertime, again, just as I mentioned earlier, it could just, your attic space gets excessively hot, and that could cause premature wear of your shingles from the excessive heat.
All right, you ready for another one, Dave? So far, you're 1 for 1, unless you're hedging your best is just to be nice. True or false? Contractors, they measure once and cut twice, but they do it confidently, so you would never know.
False.
False. All right, you're not representing yourself, Todd. You're representing the business in general. We know that you do everything perfectly, but is this true or false?
Well, there is a real saying in the industry, it's always measure twice, cut once. So, experienced carpenters, experienced guys in the field that know what they're doing, even in questionable moments, are going to measure. Nobody wants to do anything twice. Does it happen? It happens in every industry. It happens from car service, car sales, engineers, architects, and even guys like you, Ray. You got to ask the question twice sometimes. So it does happen. It's not the standard.
Never happens to me.
I measured 3 times at once.
You guys have such large responsibility, and I have so little at the end of the day. Dave is designing things that could fall and break, and you're designing things that could fall and break. My biggest thing is my internet goes out. What am I going to do? Okay. What are the most overlooked flashings that cause leaks, even when the shingles are properly installed, Todd?
Oh, so all flashings are very important. And to specifically choose one, I like to say the ones that we put on the corners. They are called kick-out flashings. Kick-out flashings are important and a lot of times not used at all or not used properly. So a kick-out flashing is where a wall meets a roof. You have staggered roofs, and you want to make sure that the water is directed away from the wall and into the gutter. And so without those, You get buildup in the corners where the sun won't hit it because of shadows, etc. And it'll freeze and cause a lot of ice damming. And even in the unfreezing situations, it causes direct water flow up against the building, unnecessary. You want to direct that water flow into the gutter. So I would say if there was any one flashing that's overlooked or neglected or not even installed at all, it would be a kick-out flashing.
The funny part is like Dave was nodding his head. Like you guys are so into this that like you seem actually excited about some of the questions. Dave, you were nodding your head. You were agreeing, or do you have a different flashing that you don't like?
That's the flashing that I was hoping Todd would say, and he said it. So we're on the same page. It's a very important flashing, and unfortunately, the damage caused from not having that flashing or that flashing being improperly installed is something that isn't necessarily seen right away, but not having it for like 10, 15 years, and that water getting behind the siding at that spot causes major, major damage. And I've seen, especially, in this area and more north, where, we're taking materials off of a building and the wall is just completely disintegrated, sheathing and framing and all, just from the constant inundation of water getting behind the siding and getting behind the building paper, the protection. So yeah, that's a very important flashing. Second to that flashing is obviously ice and water shield, which we talk about all the time.
So now I feel like I'm at the diner and all the cool construction guys like Todd are hanging out. I could go and be like, oh, that kick out flashing. I hate that kick out flashing. And they're going to be like, wow, look at this guy. He knows what he's talking about.
He knows what he's talking about.
Okay.
That's great.
Skylight leaks determine cladding, fasteners, determining factors for skylight leaks. Cladding, fasteners, curb flashing, ice damming, or incorrect roof pitch.
So the flashing is like the key, and the pitch could be something. If you do put a skylight on an improperly pitched roof, it's generally going to have problems. But the reality is flashing is so key when you're installing these skylights. And modern day skylights have flashing kits. So you actually buy the skylight itself. Then there's a flashing kit that's pre-made to fit that skylight itself. Those are really the only things you should be using when doing any type of skylight replacement. And remember, people always have this question, and it's silly to me, and I answer it in a very silly way, is, oh, do we really need to replace the skylights when we're replacing the roof? And a lot of condominiums or community style living have this challenge because somewhere in those weird bylaws that somebody wrote a billion years ago, it says windows and skylights, or windows and doors and skylights, are the responsibility of the homeowner. So now there's this huge project that you're embarking on as a community, and you have to go tell people who own a house that has skylights that it's their responsibility to change them. And they say to you, well, we don't want it. Well, that's the craziest thing to do, because the skylight is going to wear down just as much as the shingle. And I always use this quote. I say, you wouldn't change 3 tires on your car, you change all 4 tires. So when you're doing a roofing project, you're replacing all of that skylight, all of the flashing around it, and you're going to use a modern day skylight with a modern day flashing kit.
Dave, why do we put skylights in? It seems like every one of them leaks eventually.
I have no idea. I hate skylights. Take them all out.
Yeah.
Do away with them completely. There's no reason why there should be a window in a roof. I mean, I understand, you want to get light, and it's nice to look up and see the sky. Natural light, it's great, but they are just nothing but a problem in my eyes. I hate them. I took them. I had them in my house when I moved in, and I redid my bathroom. It was in my bathroom. I took it right out.
Yeah, they leak. They're terrible. I've never seen one that hasn't leaked and then they start just looking crummy.
The reason why I had to redo the bathroom was because my skylight started to leak, and then the ceiling eventually caved in, and I was like, well, it's time to redo the bathroom.
It's that skylight group with the politicians.
Yeah.
They have a lot of influence. Putting skylights in, or they'd be illegal. Dave, are you ready for another one?
Sure.
True or false? Contractors, they open one wall, but they always find 10 problems. One wall equals 10 problems. Is this true or false?
It depends on what structure they're looking at. No, I would say false. They're not carming. They're not mechanics.
Oh, I think Todd's going to go true on this. So let's see. Todd, generally.
We, maybe not every wall, but many times we open up walls to find things that you just can't believe have been done, whether it's the framing methods or most of the times what we find is bad electrical wires. I know that sounds crazy, but it's just stuff that's just usually not exactly the way you would want it to be. So that we do find a lot of for some reason.
So it's true. All right.
It's true.
You're 2 for 3, Dave, I believe. Gutter and downspouts sizing. When does it increase, or when does it increases from room drainage or additions from re-roofing? I guess, like, how do you determine the sizing? The questions are a little jarbled because they only fit on the screen so much. So I have to like cut them back. And then I like hope I can remember what I meant, but then like it's been 2 weeks and I don't. So gutter downspouts increases. I guess they're talking about the size.
Yeah.
And is it more about is the sizing of downspouts and roofs? Is the sizing of gutters and downspouts more about roof drainage, or do people remember to also increase it when they do re-roofing? Like, how often do you have to change it?
So generally speaking, a gutter could last the lifetime of a shingle. It really could. It's aluminum. It'll deoxidize, it'll wear, it'll bend, it will break if it's, if it's challenged. So what we like to do now is, and we offer this in all of our, between when we do work with Falcon and ourselves, we always offer a gutter upgrade. The older style gutters, generally something that was made in the last 30 years, 20 to 30 years, is usually a 5-inch gutter with a 2-inch by 3-inch leader. Now, to define, to people understand, the gutter is what's along the house. It's usually horizontal. And then the leaders are the vertical pipes, basically aluminum pipes that go from the gutter down to the ground to drain the water away. So you have 5-inch and 2x3. We offer upgrades of 6-inch and 3x4. There is a madman calculation of how that increases by, I believe, like a couple of 100% of drainage and flow. Dave can give you those numbers. We recommend them. You're going to replace your roof. You're going to replace your skylights, your flashing kits, and everything else. You should replace your gutters, especially if they've been there that long. Upgrading your gutter can never hurt your circumstance.
Dave, why are gutters so small? Why don't we just make them bigger? They always get clogged.
They don't get clogged because of the size, though. Most standard gutters that are installed on residential buildings can handle the flow. They get clogged because they're not maintained. They're not cleaned out regularly. Or maybe the discharge piping that they're connected to underground has failed because they'll use, originally, back in the 80s and 90s when they were putting in buildings, they were using Schedule 20 PVC pipe that is not good for, for long-term use under soil conditions, or, it collapses and fails. So if it doesn't have a good mode of discharge, it's going to back up and fail. So there is a calculation in the plumbing code that we can do on a roof area to determine how much flow is coming off that roof area to figure out whether or not a standard 5-inch K-style gutter is going to handle it, or if they need to increase to a 6-inch. But in most cases, like Todd said, when you're replacing a roof, it's not that much of an increase in cost to just go with the bigger gutter size, which most end up doing. So,
Why do we even have gutters? I was in Colonial Williamsburg a long time ago, and they had a building. There was no gutters, but like over the door, there was another mini roof. And then the water drained into like a concrete or brick ravine, and it took all the water away. So they had no problem with leaves. They had no problem with, clogging. The water
Yeah.
was still taken away from the foundation. Why do we have to have gutters, Dave? They seem
Well,
like,
that's a very good question. In fact, in many high snow areas, buildings don't have gutters because the snowpack and the ice will tear the gutters off the building. Or buildings that have standing seam metal roofs where the snow will slide off the roofs. Again, don't have gutters. They might have like snow, what are they called? Snow rakes or like those little, they're like little snow guards that keep the snow on the roof so it doesn't slide down all at once. But gutters, the primary purpose of gutters in areas that don't have that high snow impact is to reduce erosion. If you don't have gutters, the water is just flowing off the roof all around the building. And wherever the water falls, you're going to have washout of soil just from the velocity of water hitting the ground. That's going to cause the soil to be displaced. It's going to splash back on the building because that water is falling really close to the foundation. So you're going to get splashback and wetting of the building, of the siding, of the framing potentially. So it's all about keeping and potentially all that water falling at the foundation, around the foundation, is going to potentially cause water infiltration into the foundation if it's not properly waterproofed. So like if you have a basement and all that water is directed at the foundation, there's potential for that water to contribute to the groundwater situation and get into the basement. So you're really just managing the flow of water that's falling around the foundation and concentrating it into 1, 2, or 4 discharge locations and getting it away from the building. The goal is to get water away from the building.
right. And this system did it. And it's obviously Colonial Williamsburg is pretty darn old. So it was basically
Mhm.
like a brick, very, you could step in it, you wouldn't hurt yourself, very shallow, and the water falls into it. It's not hitting the dirt or the ground. And then the water and the leaves and the debris, it's all simply just washed wherever they want it to go.
Yeah.
I don't think we need gutters. I'm against gutters. Okay. Todd loves them. It's a big part of his business. All right, Todd, you wouldn't be doing gutters if it was Colonial Williamsburg. They would laugh at you. They would be like, no, we're not buying your gutters. We don't need them. So
We'll stay north.
distinguish failure in a waterproof membrane. How do you distinguish failure in a waterproof membrane compared to failure in flashing transitions, compared to failure from adjacent building components?
So, leaks are not always the easiest to diagnose. Generally speaking, we get them right, but there are challenges sometimes. What we like to do is known as the invasive test or the destructive test. We will actually get up in the area where we think the water is coming from, and we will get there with a hose, and we will provide water, and we will replicate a rainstorm, and we will try to pinpoint exactly where that leak is coming from. Generally, let's say if it's on a membrane like an ice and water shield, everything's coming off to get to that membrane to begin with. So flashing and siding all need to be removed, including shingles. So anytime you find a leak that's penetrating through any one of those components and making its way down through the plywood, remind yourself that that area, that square, let's say, is going to be removed, and we're going to be replacing everything new in that area to stop that leak. That's a real repair. A temporary repair is maybe throwing another shingle over it or putting some tar on it. Those just buy you a short amount of time.
Dave, it seems like finding these leaks is so difficult. I had an old house and I would try the hose, and granted, I didn't know what I was doing. I'm a homeowner kind of fixer, but man, it's hard to find a leak, right? Because real world scenarios, Todd, is rain lasts long and it saturates things. It's difficult. How is it difficult, Todd, to find leaks? It must be very difficult, right?
It can be very difficult. Yes.
Okay.
Just if I can add to that, one of the things that we do is a lot of is, in addition to invasive and destructive testing, is water testing. Just like you said, Ray, you pulled the hose out and you try to spray it. But in concert with that, we're using things like thermographic cameras that give you a thermographic image of what you're looking at to determine the temperature ranges of the various building elements. So you can actually see if there's water getting in as a result of your spray testing in a specific area by the different color of the water, because it's going to be colder than the surrounding building elements. So we use that. We use moisture meters. We use different technologies to try to figure out where the leaks are coming in and what's causing them.
Todd, Dave was telling me at the holiday party that sometimes like contractors don't have water available and they've, urinated on the roof because they just want to get the job done.
Nah, he didn't say that.
Instead of using a hose. Is that a wise tale?
Come
or is
on,
that...
man. I know he didn't say that. You're
All right.
making that up. You and your girlfriend on ChatGPT made that one up.
Made that up. He never said that, and I don't even know why it came to my mind, but it did, and it's
It's
very
almost
sad.
a little concerning that you brought that up on a
I know.
live stream, but we'll let it go.
I know.
That's
I'll
funny.
probably, maybe I'll edit it out. We'll see. I just couldn't resist.
Don't start talking about children next, then we're totally getting off of this thing.
No, definitely not. Okay. True or false, Dave?
Yes.
Contractors, they always have one good tool that no one else is allowed to touch it. Every one of them. Don't touch my tool. Don't touch my tool. Is that true or false, Dave?
Definitely true.
Todd, true or false?
Very true. Do not mess with a man's tools or a woman's tools. Do not touch them. They have personal tools. Some of those guys have hammers that are 20 years old. It's more of an emotional thing and a sentimental thing than anything.
Not letting someone use your hammer, though, as long as you know you're going to get it back, that seems awfully kind of like territorial, because like nobody could break a hammer. Like I could see like maybe like a tape measure or something that someone could break, but people can't break hammers.
Yes, you can. Those old hammers, those wooden hammers, yeah, for sure.
Todd, what is your oldest tool? Do you have one?
Oldest tool? I'm the oldest tool around here. I have some cool tools. My father was in business for a long time before me. So actually, I'll send you some pictures, or next time I have some just cool stuff from him, his original T-square and a couple levels. They're really cool. They're wooden levels. Everything now is made out of a composite or a plastic or a fiberglass. So the old wooden levels were cool. I don't know how old they are, but they're older than me, I can tell you that.
I have a pair of scissors that I started with in the printing business when I was like 18 and I had to buy them myself, and I still have them and I'm very attached to them. So
hey, you wouldn't lend those out.
No, I just surprised that I still have them after so many years. Dave, you don't have any tools, right? Engineers, you have about
I
a
do
pencil.
actually. Look, I have my dad was a mechanical engineer, and I've got this really old slide rule that he would use, right? That he gave to me. So I don't use it, but it's cool to look at.
Do you know how to use it?
I can probably figure it out. It's been a while.
It seems so complicated. I never understood how a slide rule.
It's a scale. So like you're using it to like scale on drawings. So like if a drawing has like the drawing is like 1 inch equals 20 feet or something like that. You use this. It's got a way to determine what the scale is, but it's interchangeable and adjustable and everything.
I
And
wonder if that would be.
it's actually from Russia, so it's in Russian, so I can't read most of it.
Well, I'm glad you're not using it then.
Right.
I can definitely see you hear in the news some major building incident is like off by 4 feet because Dave felt like using his Russian slide ruler instead of the computer one day. Okay. Isolating leaks, Todd. Window insulation defects versus failures in house wrap versus sill pan flashing versus siding integration. Which one is the most difficult to deal with in isolating leaks?
Unfortunately, I don't know if it's the most difficult, but it winds up sometimes being the last thing we check is the actual window itself. So, you open these areas up and you you see what you're dealing with, and you try and wrap the frame, let's say with a Vicor, and the frame that's pressed up against the plywood. So you try and secure all those areas, and you'll even caulk any open plywood joints, wrap everything with Tyvek when you're done, put all the vinyl or all new siding back, and then it leaks again. And it's bewildering because you've covered everything, even the flashing, you said a window pan. What happens is sometimes the frames themselves are just cracked and they're very hard to locate. And the windows will leak. The actual window frame itself will start to leak. And that is what we find, unfortunately, becomes our last look at, our last resort. But that is the one that I think is the most challenging, believe it or not.
Dave.
That's when your water testing comes in handy.
Do you think, Todd, I know like when I had my printing businesses, that sometimes we would check a book like 60 pages, every detail, every page perfectly, but then we would miss the front cover. We would miss the most obvious of all blaring mistakes. And I think this is the same with every business. In construction, I can see, right, you get so focused on the details that sometimes you miss the most obvious. Does that ever happen in the construction business?
Sure, of course. That the window is a prime example, That's just one of those things. You're overlooking the obvious.
That's what it reminded me of. That's why it came to my mind is when you were talking about that. So the window's right there and it's easy to miss. Seasonal expansion and contraction. Siding cracks are structural. Are they fastening related or are they purely cosmetic, these cracks?
All types of cracks. So if we're going to stay on the outside, a lot of people see on their foundation, which is usually doesn't have siding on it. It's kind of like a scratch coat of masonry cement over the top of it. Those areas get cracked. Those are not structural. It's just a face coat that goes over your CMU, your concrete masonry unit. And those tend to, just like anything else over years, start to stress a little bit and they fail. They have cracking or spidering or veining you may see. Those are non-structural issues. Sometimes you'll go inside a basement and you'll be looking around on a foundation wall and you'll have a nice crack through the wall. That's something that you would generally lean to finding out if there's going to be more of a problem. Will that turn into a structural issue? There's little devices that engineers bring by. They actually measure the crack over time to see if it expands or gets worse or better. And those are two. Also on the inside of the house, if you see wood or sheetrock cracks, it's very common, especially this time of the year. Right now, it's so dry. I know it seems the opposite because of the snow, but the air is really dry. We're under 30% almost every day, all day. Things are going to tighten up and are going to crack. And you see that in sheetrock unions where walls meet ceilings, and you'll see them in trim corners on miter cuts, etc. in the house, miter joint cuts. Those are common, but not structural.
Dave, it's kind of amazing that there aren't more leaks in buildings, right? Like this faceting related, siding has to attach to the building somehow, right? And I assume that is invasive, right? If something's either nailed or screwed in to the wall, it's pretty amazing that we don't have a lot more leaks.
Yeah, the siding in most cases is not your protection from water infiltration. It's the building wrap, the building paper that's behind the siding. That's your protection. So as long as that's maintained properly, water is always going to get behind the siding. And hopefully that building wrap, that Tyvek or whatever is being used as the building wrap, underlayment, you can call it, is going to protect the structure. But yeah, I mean, with respect to seasonal expansion and contraction, you have vinyl siding. That's got a piece of vinyl siding has nailing a nailing flange on it, and there's where you put the nail, there's allowance for the siding to move. So if you install it with the nail too tight into the sheathing, that will restrict its movement and won't let, because siding vinyl siding will move with the seasonal expansion, with seasonal changes or variations in temperatures. But if it's pinned tight to the wall, it's not going to allow that movement, and you'll get that like buckling of siding. If you're walking around, you kind of see like walls are a little bit wavy. That's because the siding was installed too tight to the building, to the sheathing.
It's amazing how easy it is to mess up. I just saw a video that I never do this. Like, you don't want your framing to be unbelievably tight because you need room for expansion. Like I think a lot of people just build their own additions and just shove it in there as tight as possible. Like, you want some space in between, right, Dave?
Yeah, especially with anything related to finishes like flooring, tile, anything you put it tight up against a wall and don't allow for that little bit of room for expansion, contraction, it's going to cause issues.
Dave, true or false? Contractors, I'm going to put Todd on this one personally on the spot. Does Todd drink more coffee than water? More, because they always have a coffee cup, these guys, every time. And there's a million coffee cups on the dash of their truck all over the place.
Yeah, I don't think Todd drinks coffee from what I recall.
Okay, Todd, true or false? More coffee than water?
Dave's right. I don't drink coffee. So a lot
How
of
did I
water in
remember
my
that?
truck, a lot of iced tea, and a lot of water.
Do you think most contractors drink a lot of coffee though, Todd?
Probably.
Yeah, I would guess so. I mean, listen, every professional drinks a lot of coffee. You're just trying to stereotype us right now. I get it. I get what you're doing.
I mean, I am researching, and I did ask for contractor stereotypes.
There
So
you go.
they didn't. I could
Probably
ask.
said something about a pickup truck, right? Yeah.
I could ask for engineering stereotypes, but it would probably be boring.
Yeah, very.
Oh,
Okay.
that's terrible.
All right. Exterior door frame rot. Exterior door frame, the rotting. Is it from splashback, caterpillar wicking?
Capillary.
Thank you.
Wait.
Failed flashings or HVAC interior humidity imbalance. Which one is it, Todd?
I think a lot of it's the wicking.
What is that? I don't know what it is.
It's absorbing moisture off the ground and bringing it up into the wood, right, Dave?
Yeah. Yeah, or it could be just any adjacent material. If it's wet, it's that the water just gets kind of sucked in to the wood that's adjacent to it.
I didn't know that. That's interesting. I would have never guessed that in a million years. How do
So
you?
if you have like mulch on the ground and or even concrete, and that concrete stays wet, the bottom of the trim or the frame of the door is going to wick up that moisture. And especially if the bottom of that trim or frame is not painted or protected, it's going to wick it up even quicker, and that'll cause the rot. But some of it could happen from splashback also, just water hitting the ground, splashing back onto the wood. Again, if it's not properly maintained, if it's not painted, cleaned, it's going to just rot a lot quicker from those issues.
Sounds totally preventable.
Yep.
With proper maintenance.
Correct.
Exterior paint is peeling in sheets. What are the causes, Todd?
Peeling in sheets, you mean? Okay, so that means it's excessively coming off. A lot of people don't realize that there's a difference between paint and stain. And a lot of areas that we go to that should be stained get painted, and a lot of places that we go to that are supposed to be painted get stained. So if the material is the wrong material applied to whatever the thing is you're painting, that's going to cause that type of peeling.
Dave.
Now, don't confuse that with just like, 10 years of someone hasn't painted their house and it starts to flake everywhere from neglect. That's different. When it's peeling off and you're not even seeing paint, you're down to bare wood, it's generally the cause.
Dave.
Prep is everything with painting. If you're painting on a dirty surface, the paint is not going to adhere. Might adhere initially, but then it's going to come off.
Who
if-
would
if-
who would do that? Who would paint on a dirty surface?
Everyone.
yeah.
You have
Of
no
course.
idea. You have no idea what people do.
That is ridiculous. Okay. Now, I know the answer to this one, Dave. I'm going to see if you know the answer. True or false? Every project that there's a problem or an issue with the contractor, they say it, oh, well, it was the previous guy. The previous guy, the previous guy, the previous guy. True or false?
I mean, in our industry business, yeah, I would say true.
It was in the printing business. It's in every business, everything you do. Everybody always blames the previous guy. Todd, what are you going to tell us for the contractors?
Yeah, it was definitely the last guy.
Yeah. I mean, it's like the last guy's always an idiot. So what does that
That's
make
right.
you unless you stay there forever? Eventually you become an idiot too.
Sure. So
Okay.
you try, like, we said it earlier, you measure twice and you cut once. Try not to be the idiot.
Okay. But it won't matter. Somebody will still blame you anyway. So determine new elastometric. Dave, can you say that for me?
Elastomeric.
Elastomeric.
Coding system is compatible with the previous layer when you have unknown generations of coatings. Dave, we may need help on this one. What do you think we're asking?
Yeah, we do.
It's just like Todd said earlier, when you have like oil stain or like stain versus paint, and they may not be compatible. Like you can paint over stain, but you can't stain over paint. It's the same thing with elastomeric coatings. You have to be sure that they're compatible with what's underneath it, or what the current coating is. So like elastomeric coatings are typically used on like parking garage slabs or balcony slabs, concrete, to protect the concrete. So if the concrete has a coating on it already, you want to be sure of what that coating is to confirm whether or not the elastomeric coating is going to be compatible with that and stick to it. If it's an incompatible coating, you're going to have to remove it. And again, that's all in the prep.
This is like that. I assume because it says it has elastic. This is like that rubbery coating that
Elastomeric means that it has some flexibility to it.
I've seen, and probably I wouldn't know, but Dave, a lot of people, I believe some concrete contractors that told me like, why do we use that? Right? Isn't concrete supposed to be able to absorb water? Like, when did this
No.
come about, and why do we need it? There's been concrete without it that's lasted forever if it's maintained
Well,
properly.
it depends on what kind of concrete we're talking about. So like concrete sidewalk, flat work that's on grade, that's not reinforced, even reinforced, that's on grade is okay to be unprotected. But when you're talking about like suspended reinforced concrete slabs that are in like a parking garage, where the reinforcement is critical in maintaining the structural stability of that parking garage. So you've got a lower level of the parking garage with concrete that's on grade, that's fine. But then you got a second floor and that slab is elevated, right? So that concrete is exposed and it's got reinforcement within that concrete. If concrete is porous, so water will actually get through the capillaries of the concrete and get to that reinforcement. If it gets to that reinforcement will start to corrode. And what happens when reinforcement corrodes, it expands. And as it expands, it'll actually pop the concrete. And that could reduce the structural stability of that entire slab. So that coating will protect the concrete, keep it from being porous and allowing that water to migrate through the capillaries of the concrete.
I don't like it also because I've heard stories that people have had this put on decks and then their furniture ruins it. Like, why would you put something on a deck that furniture can ruin?
That's different. You're talking about like a Duradeck, like a vinyl membrane. You do have to take some care with moving furniture around. It's pretty robust material. I'm surprised. I'd be surprised to see damage related to that from furniture. And elastomeric coatings are really not meant for decks. They can be put on like concrete balconies, and again, they're very resilient to lots of those kinds of activities. So there shouldn't be any issues with that.
I don't want anything that I have to take care with. I just want to move my furniture. I don't want to have to worry about breaking something. Okay,
You
we
also
already,
want to protect the structure.
all right. Paint failure due to improper prep. We just went over that one. Really quick, Dave. They believe duct tape can solve 30% of life's problems. I believe that Todd probably is a duct tape abuser because all contractors are. Dave, agree or disagree with me?
Um, I, wow. I think duct tape could solve
Me
30%
too.
of life's problems, but I would say false.
I have duct tape right now. I probably use duct tape at least once every 3 days, and I'm not even in a construction environment. Todd, you love duct tape.
30% duct tape, 30% Windex. Everything's solved there. We got 60% of our problems solved.
Index. What's that
Windex
about?
on everything. Come on,
There
you
you
know
go.
this.
Okay. All right. Todd, let's move quickly. What critical details are often missing that later cause contractor bids to vary by 30 to 40%? And bids should never, can I just say this? Bids should never vary by that much if you're quoting it properly. Do you agree?
I do agree.
Yeah.
I do agree. So, listen, sometimes if you were building one deck and you were starting from the scratch, you'll have 5 contractors and they'll be really, really close. But now you're going to rebuild, 500 decks. And it gets a little, it should be, oh, well, just take the number and times it by 5. But it also depends on the conditions. So the heights, the risks. What type of equipment do you need? Is it a 3rd-story deck, a 2nd-story deck? Are we hanging over a cliff, or are we working around parked cars? And I think that puts a lot of the variables into bids, which is what sometimes which will change the percentages. But I do agree with you. Anything within $1 million, everybody should be within a 5% ratio, but it doesn't always happen that way.
That's why I think it's important to use quality construction companies that are going to think about all those things you just mentioned, because otherwise you're stuck with a guy that can't afford to fix the issue and he's going to mess up cars. Like you said, he's not going to have a place to put all this stuff. He's going to stick a Porter John out in front of Miss Mary's front door. There's just going to be 1,000 things. But if you use a quality construction company, they're going to anticipate all these little minor incidents, which cost money. Do you agree?
I do. I think experience in larger projects like what we're doing in these communities, when you're re-roofing an entire community, experience is key. You want to make sure that you don't repeat any problems you had in the past, and you want to make sure that you can keep your community safe while all of this is going on. So, yeah, I do agree with you, Ray.
All right, Dave, closing thoughts, and then we'll give Todd the last word on wow, this took a lot more time than I thought. And you guys were you were impressive. You knew all the questions were pretty familiar for the most part.
Yeah, they were familiar.
But Dave, closing thoughts.
Yeah, closing thoughts. I mean, it's important to make sure that whatever project or maintenance that you have to do, that you involve the proper companies, whether it be a contractor or an engineer. If you have a large scale project, don't try to handle it yourself. Get the proper help. When you have to file taxes, you hire an accountant. When you have to create a will, you're going to hire an attorney. So if you have a large scale project, hire an engineer to scope it out for you. Get a bid spec together, engineering drawings, so that when you go to contractors, you don't have that 30 to 40% variation. All those details are spelled out. So all the contractors are bidding on the same thing. It's apples to apples, and you won't get those big swings in costs.
Generally, Dave, who's smarter, architects or engineers? Which is the hardest field?
Engineering is more difficult.
Okay, we'll see. We'll find an architect, Dave, and we'll see what they say. All right, Todd, closing thoughts.
Well, I'd like to piggyback what Dave said. It's all too many times that we roll into a community that has had a contractor there that wasn't capable of meeting the needs of a larger community. You can have the local guy out there to fix your leaks and take care of stuff, and maybe he even does roofing on a residential scale. But, if you think about it, an average roofer will get a small house done in a week. Maybe they could get 50 houses done in a year on best. And here we are getting ready to re-roof 500 units. and that generally gets done in 6 months. So really vetting your contractor and knowing what they know, knowing their experience, I think is important. And board members should interview. Like, don't worry about what the prices were. If you're going to know when you talk to the contractor in the interview, before you commit to a project of this capacity, meet with those people, those professionals, and feel them out. And I think that is more important than just the price overall at all times, because you may think you're saving in the beginning, but at the end, it may cost you twice as much.
Well, thank you. Thank you both. Bye.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.